Greetings everyone. In the last few videos I've been exploring some ideas just for fun, mascots for Kellogg's Corn Pops. As of right now they don't have any. They have in the past, of course. And the first one, idea-wise, you would have seen me come up with something wacky like this where the Cool Institute built a moon for a planet whose sun was dying. Anyway, so this was like a battery, and let me see. Yeah, that was a battery of sorts to power a flashlight. Blah blah blah. Anyway, I kind of like that. It's kind of wacky. The second idea was having pop stars. So if you can imagine this trio of elves all having like separate careers outside of Rice Krispies, and Pop here becomes a spokesperson for Corn Pops, you know, because it has that name. The last thing was this, which is a child from 1950 who enjoys Corn Pops. So that's the last thing that I'm going to play around with here. And for fun, I'm just going to kind of sketch it. I'm not really going to make it super accurate or anything like that. It's just going to be just a fun sort of exercise of sorts. So I didn't do any pre-penciling on this paper. This is just playing around with ideas, and that'll be about it. Let me eat another one of these things. Anyway, so I'm going to see if I can lock this in so it'll be sort of okay, and I'll move the paper around as is necessary. So, okay. Can you imagine there being a point in time when you would get up in the morning and you were so super excited about watching cartoons? I think a lot of us now kind of take for granted that some of those cartoons, they weren't really meant for kids anyway. But we love the adventures. So like back in the 1950s, I mean, not everyone had TVs and that sort of thing. So but I think they were very optimistic in the 1950s. I think you got to see a lot of like car companies and who else would have been kind of doing this stuff? Well, I mean, even Walt Disney, especially up through the 60s and 70s, they were all thinking about a world of tomorrow, and it was very optimistic. And I think they were hoping for like clean technology, and well, yeah, I think they wanted things to be better. They just got out of like a world war, and more than anything, they wanted peace and an easier life for their kids. That's the way I kind of look at the 1950s. They made prototype cars. You know, the world of tomorrow was this spectacular thing. It was almost like I don't know, it was like everything was like rocket ships and super powered, like I don't even know how I can sort of explain any of this kind of stuff in my head the way I think about the 1950s. It was very optimistic. So if you can imagine after the second, well, we'll go back even to the First World War, people had some optimism as well in the 1920s, and they were, Art Deco was kind of a thing, and yeah, there was optimism there too. And of course, the Great Depression came not long after. It's really weird to think about this kind of stuff like that. Um, anyway, I'm doodling. And for some reason, when I picture a child of this era, I like to think of them with that Kilroy hat with a little propeller on it for some reason. Something from the Jetsons. Either that or like cowboy hats. Which I think is funny that that was kind of like a thing for kids of that time too. So right now, although proportion wise this might seem like a toddler, it might be better to think more along the lines of like a 10-year-old. So I don't know if I can make the legs seem a little longer. Maybe not. We'll just assume that this human is kind of hunched over a little bit anyway. So my mother would have been born after the 1950s. She would have been considered a baby boomer. So after the Second World War. And there were a lot of families at that point. They were still having pretty large families. You know, there were people that were farmers, and it wasn't like super rare that people worked the land. Still, at that point, now it seems like people kind of like they might have hobby farms, and depending where you are, you don't really see a lot of rural. I don't know, sort of areas with farms. And now this kid would probably have a crew cut. Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of a funny thought, I guess. Yeah, she would have been like one of like 11 in total. One had passed as a baby. Some of the strangest cartoons to look back at would be like the Looney Tunes. And if you kind of notice, some of them had a very distinct kind of style. And for a lot of people, it kind of introduced them to classical music. And classical music, it's kind of like operatic themes. I mean, there was a lot of loony things as well. Something about this proportion-wise seems a little bit off. That's okay. A human here wearing some kind of slippers. And again, kind of hunched over, I guess, too. This one, kind of messy hair. Not super messy. I mean, you try, I guess. Dip my pen. So I want you to think perhaps that these are two 10-year-olds This is supposed to be pouring some milk. Some kind of container here. Super fun jammy pants. Come on. I'll see if I can get that to get out of the blur zone in just a moment. Okay. Anyway. Here, it says corn. Not lots of room though, not lots of room. And of course, there are corn pops all over this. And it's very dynamic. I think you get the picture. It's all inside of a bowl. Now I think most people nowadays, the only kind of televisions they see like this really is in movies. Tube TVs or CRT, which is like cathode ray. They're sort of like if you can imagine still cameras where this thing shoots back and forth and basically paints an image on the screen really fast, rather than a bunch of like little lights that get turned on, like little blue or green or red lights that get turned on, the way LED works. These things would paint a picture really fast on the screen. The old tube TVs is pretty neat technology when you think about it. Like somebody had to sit down and go like, well, what do we expect an image to do? How do we transmit it? Oh yeah, well, we can transmit through the air, but why don't we try to do it through wires first? I mean, holy moly. I don't know how often you guys think about this, but I think about this once in a while. If I were ever to go back in time and not be, burned as a witch, what could I do to advance people in that time period? Is there a possibility that I might be able to build a version of an airplane? I might be able to come up with a glider, honestly enough. I think I know a little bit about how some of that works that I might be able to build. A glider, but steam powered. I mean, it's such a weird idea to think that the way things advanced, that I could come up with anything, knowing what I know now, that could help these people out. Like, I mean, I don't think I could make penicillin. I could say, well, here's a cheese sandwich, leave that out, and if it looks like, it looks green in a certain way, maybe you can eat it, and it'll help you if you're feeling sick. I don't think it would work out that great, though. I think I could go back to the 1980s and say, oh yeah, this is going to be pretty awesome. But I don't think I'd be building very specific technologies for anybody. Something like 20 years ago was probably one of the last times that I saw, or had, I should say, myself. I think it was a 32-inch tube TV. I mean, that's wild. And it would have been pretty valuable. And then not long after that, one of the next best TVs, and even to this day, I consider it to be amongst the best still. They developed plasma, flat screen. And those things were so brutally heavy. I mean, I still have one. If that thing ever fell off the wall, I mean, it would be devastating. I'm not saying it would go through the floor or anything like that. It might. And so amongst the biggest plasma TVs you could get would be 60-inch, which would be from that corner to there, right? That's how they would measure that. So let me share a little bit about the premise of what I got going on with this drawing, as I'm kind of winding it down for, although this seems a little bit less sketch like. I'll sort of define some of this a little bit. I want you to imagine this, and this is where, you know, the silly part of what I have going on in my brain. I'm going to back this out a little bit too, because I think we can see it well enough. See if I can lock that in a little bit. I want you to imagine in 1950, which is when Kellogg's Corn Pops were basically introduced to everybody, that they would ask children of that time what they thought the future would be like. And, you know, some kids would be like, oh, there's going to be flying cars, and there's going to be cures for this, and you know, we're going to dance on the moon, and, you know, the optimism of that time. And just for fun, in my mind, I'd like to think that this 10-year-old kid here, when talking to the reporters or whatever, would just say, well, in the future, let's say like 75 years in the future, well, if I'm here, I hope to be eating my, you know, Kellogg's Corn Pops. Well, that's kind of what this represents. It's just like this kid who's just wanted to eat Corn Pops, and, you know, that's all he's thinking about at the moment. I think that's funny. So, at least in my mind, that's the way I kind of pictured this whole thing. But I want you to imagine now that this, and let me see if I can move that up just a little bit. This is 1950. And if we were to jump ahead 75 years, we'd be all the way into the future of 2025. And this is where this whole thing sort of splits apart. Imagine that this kid in 2025 would actually be 85 years old. And this could be this kid's great-grandchild. So picture that kind of like as a, I don't know, just as a concept, that this cereal's been around that long. Yeah, it's just kind of a funny thought. And just as a bonus sort of thing, let's see if I have my good friend the bunny pen here. That from this time period, well, you know what, let's not use the bunny pen, let's just go with some markers here. Let's see if we can find a bright yellow. Oh, we got a darker yellow there. I don't know where I would have put that. I must have ran off with it. Well, I'm going to use this one. And that this side would all be in color. But that if you were to sort of look at this with modern eyes, you'd see, it could be Jimmy, could be whoever, as an 85-year-old. But from his perspective, he's still that 10-year-old kid that sat down to, watch the tube in his favorite Western or what have you. Oops, I nearly went to... I caught myself though. I nearly put color on the side that was just going to be left black and white. That would have been tragic for the effect. And let's say that cereal bowl is a light green. Yes, you can say that for a little bit. I kind of let my brain get a little obsessed with this because, and again, I should also say this, I'm not sponsored in any way with any of this. This is just a funny thought that popped into my head. Yeah, the idea of this just seemed funny to me. It is fun, though, to see how far ideas can go. Here's a question for you. When you go out in public, how often do you wear your pajamas? Because I notice that is kind of like a regular thing for a lot of people to do. Kind of like there was a point where I think it became like a normal, natural thing to just wear your workout clothes, like your yoga pants or whatever. You just wear those in public too. Because I know sometimes after you go to the gym or what have you, you would pick up a couple of things on the way home, or not have to get changed to go do that kind of stuff. But I think it's like a normal thing now that you would just you'd wear your yoga pants. I'm not against the concept of people just being happy with what they wear. This is just going to be just a silly design on a shirt. Don't worry, I'm not going that much further than this. Sort of working a little bit of this. So yeah, the idea, generationally I suppose, of a 10-year-old here possibly could have become a parent somewhere around 1965. Could have become a grandparent around, let's say, 1990. Then would have became a great-grandparent somewhere around 2015, which is how you'd have the opportunity to hang out with a 10-year-old great-grandchild 75 years after. So let's see. Right up here. Should I use the bunny pen for this part? Why not? Maybe I can start on that side. No, let's do it all with that same color. Should have did it down there. Still can. What's stopping me? I can fix that other thing after, if I feel like it. Ooh, should be double G. I think I did the same thing down there below. I did, didn't I? Kellogg's. It's funny, you know, you keep stuff around to use as a reference, but you don't always look at it. I know I try to do stuff from memory like that. I have that other box well out of view. Kellogg's. Corn Pops. I can finally get this out of my brain. So if any of you have friends or family that work for Kellogg's. Hopefully you're not upset with me for running around in my brain with this. In no way was I trying to be too outrageous. Just a funny thought to think about. A lack of mascots. What am I missing here? There should be another G down here. Just because I think I need to do it. I'll get a little bit of paint. I'll just cover this up just a little bit. Might end up having to be a couple of different coats of white out, so it's not so obvious anymore. Not a big deal. So there you go. Nearly 40 minutes of just listening to me ramble on about an idea. So that's sort of like the third concept, basically, for a story behind a cereal. Okay, there you go. I suppose it would be interesting here. You could have something on TV that would kind of bleed from both sides, you know, from black and white to full color. Could be Woody Woodpecker or whatever. It doesn't really matter right off, but yeah, that is it. I don't think I need to do anything else with that for now. It's just a funny concept. Showing that eyebrow a little bit though. Although, maybe I'm not quite done yet. I still have so much weird things floating around in my head. After this, I think I'll be done though. Gotta have some kind of a rocket car. Now I think I'm done. So I can get a slightly more backed out version, a little bit more. Well, comment down below if you wish. And let me know if you have any weird and wonderful ideas like that. All right. Have a wonderful day, everyone.